welcome to Banyan's Faith and Recovery Radio Show. I'm your host, Anthony Acampora. Thanks for joining us. We're live again on Facebook Live, and this is also going to air in Orlando and the Atlanta markets this weekend. So we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're in a different studio, same studio, different room. It's actually a better room. This is really nice, and I'm blessed to have this. I'm also the director and chaplain at Banyan Treatment Center's Faith and Recovery Program. It's a faith-based program in Pompano Beach, Florida. We deal with substance abuse and alcohol addictions. It's a non-denominational program. The program is designed for clients to establish or restore their faith in God, as well as addressing their addiction. So that's the program there. Blessed to have this opportunity to share. We're going to be taking questions, so if you have any questions that relate to faith or addiction or recovery or any of those types of things, feel free to use the comment section of this Facebook Live, and I'll try to answer or just make up some answers for you. No, just kidding. But I'll try to get some answers to you. We already have some that came through. I put this out last night, and they came through Facebook Messenger and those types of things. I actually got some really good questions from some people that are actual clients in the faith program as well. So this program, Banyan's Faith and Recovery Program, it basically focuses on areas of applying biblical principles to your lives, advice and insight for those suffering in addiction, as well as the families. We'd like to provide them with insight and answer some questions. Sometimes when someone is in active addiction or dealing with mental health disorders, a lot of times the families or friends and loved ones, or even the person themselves, they don't know where to go. They don't want to ask questions. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed. There's a lot of stigma that comes with some of these things, so they don't ask anyone, and they just don't have the knowledge. They don't have the insight. So this is a great opportunity, because you could be driving, you could be home or whatever, and maybe get some answers to some questions. So that's one of the reasons I really like that. So advice and insights for those suffering from addiction and mental health disorders, as well as family members. We have experts in their field. This is our 30th show. And boy, time goes by fast. We've done 30 actual faith and recovery programs. And we've had some amazing guests on here. Dr. Keith Abloh was on a few weeks ago. One of the top psychiatrists out there in the country. He's actually the psychiatrist for Fox News. I said that the other day, and people say, "Oh, really? Yeah, I think they really need a psychiatrist, those people on Fox News." But no, he's actually the correspondent, the guy that comes on and he gives insights when there's issues throughout the country and things like that. And he's on the team there at Fox News, and he's also on the Blaze. He was great. That was a great show. All of these shows, these Faith and Recovery radio shows and programs, can be heard on our website, faithandrecovery.com, faithandrecovery.com. They're also on the radio shows websites, the actual stations with websites as well. But if you want to listen to any of these, we had Dr. Keith Abloh. We had Dr. David Rosemarin on. He was on a couple of weeks ago as well. He's the director of mental health and spirituality for McLean Hospital in Boston. Just as part of Harvard. This guy's the real deal. He's also a Harvard professor. And he was very, very awesome too. We've had DJ Jaffe on from a policy treatment organization out of New York. Howard Rosen and Christine Zeralbin, the prosecutors in Miami. They were on a few months back, shared some really, really good information about what's going on with the opiate epidemic, and also what's going on and how these different laws and legislations are really having an effect on not just the addiction, but mainly the dealers and what's going on out there with these people that are selling this stuff and some of the laws that have been passed. So that was really good as well. So like I said, we have a special program today. We'll be taking questions on Facebook Live. If you have any questions, I think we've got a couple coming through here actually now. I have a question here from Robert, okay? And he says this: why do I need to stop hanging around with friends I've known for my entire life just because I'm in recovery from drugs? And he's asking, why do I need to eliminate these friends, right? This is a common thing that happens in recovery, and I went through it as well when I started dealing with this, and it's like, really? I'm not supposed to hang out anymore with these people I've known my whole life? I've been friends with these people for years. Grew up with these people. I've known them since junior high, and I'm supposed to just kind of cut them off? And that can scare people off, right? It scares people off because people are like, well, there's no way I could do that. I'm not going to never talk to this best friend of mine again. So what do? They end up going around them again. They start surrounding themselves with people that are in active addiction and using. And a lot of times they fall right back into the same pattern, right? There's a verse in the Bible that says, bad company corrupts good character, right? Bad company corrupts good character. So we see this in treatment a lot. People do phenomenal treatment, especially in our faith program. They're reading the Bible, they're getting plugged in, they're connecting with the church, they're praying. And then they go back out and they get kind of pulled into their old friends and things like that. And before you know it, they can end up relapsing. So it's so important that we assess and identify the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. Because if they're people that are still involved with using, whether it's drinking or drugs or whatever that may be, it's very likely that we get pulled back into that situation. So again, my father used to always say, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, right? And that is so true. You know how you know that's true? One of the reasons, if you're on Facebook or you ever get a friend request from someone and you don't really know who they are, what do? You look at who their friends are. And that's how you can tell how you know them, right? It's interesting how that works. But I could look at 2 or 3 people that they're friends with, and I know exactly where I know them from. Is it Connecticut? Do I know them from New York? Do I know them from this, that type of thing? So there's another verse that's in. Well, we're going to hold off on that. I'm going to read this next question. So, Robert, that's basically some of the information that I have. And that's the response that I have for that. Just be very careful. It doesn't mean that you never talk to these people again that you're good friends with, but early on in recovery, I would definitely remove myself from them and not be surrounded with that. What we want to try to do with this, you hear this all the time if anybody's familiar with recovery or anything, people, places, and things, right? I actually say the places, I think, are even more important. Because if you change the places that you start to hang around at, the people are all automatically going to change. I go to Calvary Chapel. I go to Calvary Chapel on Friday, Saturday nights, instead of going to a casino for 10 or 12 hours. So I changed the places, and the people automatically change. So important to do that, but it's so important to also replace. We have to replace these things that we're doing. Isolating is definitely no good. You don't want to be alone. What do they say? An idle mind is the devil's playground, that type of thing. We have to be very careful and early on in recovery with just being isolated. Because what happens, you start to get bored, right? And you start to miss what's going on. You start getting a couple of texts or calls, and the next thing you know, it's like, you know what? I've been doing nothing for 2 months. I'm going out tonight. I'm gonna just go out. I won't drink. I won't do whatever. And you put yourself in that position. You put yourself in that environment, and it's very hard to succeed. So set yourself up to succeed, not for failure, right? Very important. There's a saying with a little story, kid's going into a candy store. He goes in every day, walks around, he's nervous, he's pacing. The owner's watching him every day. So by the 4th day, the owner goes up to him and he goes, "You trying to steal my candy?" to the kid. And the kid looks at him right in the eye, he goes, "No, I'm trying not to steal it." So the point of it is why does he keep going in there? Why does he keep putting himself in that position to fail? That he has to get so upset, so nervous, and pacing and everything, trying to convince himself not to do something that he doesn't even have to be involved with in the first place. He doesn't have to go in there. So if you relate that to addiction and recovery and all that type of stuff, don't go into the bar. Don't hang around in the areas where the people what you know are probably going to be doing, right? That type of thing. Identify triggers. Identify things that may put you back in a mindset of going back into that type of behavior. So all those things are extremely important, and hopefully that helped. So let's go to another one here. How negative life experiences affect the way we relate to God? Okay? How do negative life experiences affect the way we relate to God? Okay? So if you have a bad experience, which we all do at some point, okay? It's just a matter of how severe and how frequent. We're going to have bad situations. There's going to be storms in life. We're told that in the Bible. Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation, right? You will have problems. You will have trials, right? But he said, be of good cheer. I've overcome this world, right? So when we go through a situation, when we go through torment and pain and suffering, if you think about it, if you have a deep relationship with God, you probably wouldn't have had as deep as a relationship that you do with God if you didn't go through that, right? So I mean, that's what happened with me, with my story. I knew God, but I didn't really know him. I knew about him. There was no relationship. I was a CEO Christian, Christmas, Easter only, right? That was it. You know, that's when I would go to church. Or I would connect with God if something bad was happening, and I had a problem or there was an emergency, right? So I was kind of using God as like a spare tire. So you're driving and you get a flat, and all of a sudden, okay, I got to go get that spare tire. That's not the relationship that we would want to have with God, right? God should be more like the steering wheel of the car, and he's directing us, and he's guiding us, and we're in the passenger seat, or we're even in the back seat somewhere. We're nowhere near the wheel, because when we take the wheel, we usually get lost in life, right? And so God will allow suffering. God will allow things to happen, okay? So something happens, look at some of the causes out there that stemmed from and came out of, or really birthed out of a lot of pain. And I think of America's Most Wanted with John Walsh, who not too far from here in Hollywood, Florida, 1980, I believe, shopping with his son, 7-year-old kid in Sears, right? He's looking for him, he can't find him, the kid's kidnapped, the kid ends up killed, right? How does that make any sense? It doesn't, right? Why would God allow that? How could anything good come out of that? And then you fast forward, right? And we look backwards at it, and John Walsh, he established America's Most Wanted, right? And look at the thousands and thousands of people that were not brutally hurt or beaten or robbed or killed or whatever you want to fill in the blank with because of that show, because of that incident, right? So when you start looking at things like that, I think of Romans 8:28, where it says, God will work all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes, right? It's his purposes. It's not our purposes, right? So when we look at it like that, he's going to work things together for good. When we look back, it starts to make sense why we went through things, because we got stronger during those situations, during those storms. That's when we grow. We grow in the valley, not on the mountaintop. It's great to be on the mountaintop and everything's going well and oh, this is perfect. That's great. But you're really not growing that much then. When you're growing, when you're going through the storms. And what we realize is when we're on our knees and we're just completely broken, right? That's when we cry out to God from the heart. Right? It says 84 times in the Bible, seek me with all of your heart and you'll find me. Right? Seek me with all of your heart and you'll find me. That's usually preceded by a lot of pain and suffering. Because you get to the point where like, I can't go on anymore. I cannot do anything. Everything's falling apart. God, I need you. Lord, I need you. That type of thing. So when we get to that point, that's when we really look to reach out and connect. When I had everything, when I was on the mountaintop, I was director of corporate security, working in California, everything was amazing. It was a beautiful place to live. It was an incredible company. Everything was just great, right? I didn't realize there was a storm coming, right? There was a big storm coming. And my sister used to call me all the time when I was out in California, and I thought I had it made, man. I was all about the world then. I didn't want to hear anything about God or Jesus or the Bible, right? I thought I did it on my own, right? So when she started calling me, telling me all these different Bible verses, I literally would put the phone outside it wouldn't even be near my ear. I would just hold the phone in my arm, just hold it out, stretched out, and then I would come back, yeah, sounds good, okay, yeah, I got it. I wouldn't listen to a word she had to say, right? And then when things started going wrong and downhill, okay, that's when I wanted to hear. That's when I wanted to get a better understanding, and that's when I was really open and ready and surrendered my will to his will. Because my will was terrible at the time. I thought it was good. I was actually blind, and I spiritually blind. I didn't know it. You don't know it really when you're going through it. But yeah, so that's a good question though. Thanks for sharing that one. Hopefully that helped a little bit. We're gonna need to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Daniel's Faith and Recovery Radio Show. I'm your host, Anthony Acampora. We'll be direct message and also from the comment section. But we're going to move on with that. Thank you for joining us. We're back here. Okay, let's go. We're going to have, let's see, this one came up about 3 times from actually a therapist and some clients. This is, I guess, a pretty common question here. It says, how does someone get rid of the shame for the things they did during addiction? Okay? How does someone get rid of the shame for the things that they did during addiction? It's funny because I just had this question this morning as well in another venue, in a group, a devotional. And this is what I said, and this is what I would say here as far as that goes. When you're in active addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, your brain is being affected, right? Your judgment is impaired, right? Your reasoning, all that type of stuff gets skewed and it's impaired. Right? Now it's not a get out of jail free card or something. If you still have to deal with the consequences when you're out there using and whatever happens. But the good news is, and this is what I would focus on and also share with your families and things when they are still skeptical and not really believing that you are doing the right thing or you're going to fall back into that pattern of behavior. Most of the things, if you look back at it, you probably wouldn't do during active addiction if you weren't using, right? All you have to do is really look at your phone now, the day after you're out all night drinking and everything, and some of the things that you text, and some of the behaviors that you exhibit that you really wouldn't have acted like that if you weren't under the influence. So that's the good news. As long as you stay sober, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that's what I would say to my family, to my loved ones. Hey, it's not an excuse. I have to be accountable for my actions and these things that I've done, but most likely, I'm almost positive, I wouldn't have done them if I wasn't under the influence. So again, as long as you stay sober and you're not using anything, you're not going to really have to worry about making those poor choices, because what happens is the substance that you're taking, or when someone was in active addiction, and this is really to try to give the family some insight, that's affecting your body, obviously. It's having an effect on your liver, and if you're drinking, and your brain chemistry, and all these other things. It's definitely not good. It's having a negative effect. But what really happens, too, is it's the risky behavior. It's the decisions and the choices, because that part of your brain that deals with that is impaired. That's why if you get pulled over, you're driving while impaired, because your judgment is literally impaired, right? So that is an important thing to keep in mind, because that is something that again, I mean, sometimes it's the most shy, the people that are really shy or introverted types of people, and those are the ones that are like swinging from the chandeliers and screaming and yelling, fights, you get aggressive. All these things are going to happen with that. So it's a really good incentive to stay away from this stuff, even if it's alcohol, right? Even if it's just alcohol, because that could lead to a lot of bad things too. So it's the risky behaviors that we're taking that we normally wouldn't have taken if we weren't under the influence of something. It's the effect that it's having on our body. And the other thing that comes in is the guilt and the shame and the regrets, right? We get hit with those waves of guilt, shame, and regret. We do things that something totally out of character, we feel bad for, we feel remorseful, especially that next day, it really hits us. And now you feel regretful, and now you have to deal with that, right? So there's just a lot of bad things that happen when we're dealing with these types of things. So very good to try to stay away from those types of things. Here's another one here. What is the difference between about God and knowing God. Michelle wrote this. What is the difference between knowing about God and knowing God? So that would really kind of fall into the category of a relationship, a personal relationship. And if you're involved in church at all, or if you've been in the faith circles at all, you've probably heard that. You need to have a relationship with God. What does that actually mean? When people used to say that, I had no idea what that meant. Like, how would I have a relationship with someone I can't even see, right? That type of thing. So that really kind of goes back to when I was growing up in Connecticut, in the Northeast. I'm Italian, and I think it kind of goes with it. It's part of the package. If you're Italian and you're in the Northeast, you have to go to church, and you have to be an altar boy, and you have to go to Catholic school, all that type of stuff. So I had to do that. I didn't want to do that, but I had to. So when you're kind of forced into something, when you're younger, you're probably going to rebel against it. Even if you did kind of like it, you're gonna rebel against it. It's not cool. My parents want me to do it. I'm not doing it. I'll sneak out. I won't go. I'll skip it. You try to get out of it any way possible. So I think that would be a good example of knowing about God, because I knew about God. I was in Catholic school for 6 years. I heard all the stories. I understood about Jesus, the cross, everything that happened as far as that goes. But I didn't really know him. I didn't know him. I didn't even have a desire to get to know God until way later on, until after a lot of pain and after a lot of suffering. So again, we talked about this earlier. That suffering, that pain, those storms that you go through, it's not just random wasted suffering. God will use that. God will work that together for good if you let him, right? So that's really the biggest difference. I could not wait. I accepted Christ March 6, 2005 at Calvary Chapel. I could not, I was completely transformed. I had an amazing transformation. I wrote a book about it. I have a couple books. One of them's called Overcoming Emotional Obstacles Through Faith, right? And I talk a lot about that as far as the conversions. I didn't understand really what was going on. I just knew something huge happened. And that's how I started to pursue this and get involved with learning more about God, because I first wanted to know what happened to me. Because I know I was changed. I was. Paul says you're a new creation. The old person's gone, the new has come. I didn't know that verse then. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something big happened. So that's why I started getting involved and learning about God. But I could not wait to get to Calvary Chapel service on a Wednesday night and a Saturday night. Couldn't miss it. First 8-9 months, I would not miss it. Now you think back of what I was just saying, growing up, being forced to go to church. And I felt actually the church that I was in, there was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of shame. And why would I want to go to someplace that I don't even really want to go to begin with, and then feel worse when I leave and when I'm in there? Feel like I'm no good, and I have a lot of condemnation. That's not really what it's all about. That's not what it should be about. That's not the teachings of Christ, right? It's actually the opposite. And in that book, it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble. Just put my name in there if you want to get one of those books. But I talk a lot about that. There's a whole chapter on that. It's called Come As You Are, the chapter. And it's basically, as Jesus said, come as you are. Those of you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest, right? Boy, that's mind-blowing. That's radical. We tell that to our clients, and they're like, really? I thought God was trying to throw me in hell. I thought he was looking to judge me. I didn't know he wanted me to come to him for help and that type of thing. I didn't know Jesus surrounded himself by the worst people back in the day to help them and encourage them and save them and all that type of stuff. So we're going to need to close, but I really appreciate you guys sending these questions in, either most of them on private message and things like that. Next time we do this, feel free to send questions in. Thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna close now. My name is Anthony Acampora. Like I said, I'm the director and chaplain at Banyan Treatment Center. If you or someone you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, give us a call at 888-270-5712, 888-270-5712, or you can reach us on FaithTalk Atlanta.